My mother swore Karen would pay. I laughed while looking over the HOA contract, and that's when she slapped me. She didn't know I had backed up every fake invoice, every lie. She also didn't know the man sitting in the black sedan waiting for me was the lead counsel for the firm about to take over management of our entire Pineview estates. HOA, this story has no epilogue because it ends the moment she loses everything. All from a single question I was about to ask. My name is Rachel. I'm 32 years old, and my world is one of spreadsheets, compliance reports, and the quiet, satisfying click of a perfectly balanced ledger. As an internal auditor for Halberton HOA Services, I find comfort in order in rules that actually apply equally to everyone in the black and white finality of verified accounts. My townhouse is minimalist. My grass is exactly 2.5 inches tall because the HOA demands it, and my emotions are filed away with the same meticulous care as a high-risk compliance file. It is a life I built brick by meticulous brick, a fortress against the memory of the house where I first learned to walk as if I were a ghost. My mother moved us into Pineview Estates when I was 19, right after college started. She had been drifting since my father's death, and Karen Thompson, the newly elected HOA president, seemed like an anchor. Karen was 10 years older than Mom, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a smile that could charm the neighborhood watch, while her eyes calculated your every blade of grass. She owned the approved maintenance company that handled every pool cleaning, every roof repair, every landscaping job in Pineview. To my mother, Karen smelled of fresh mulch and quiet authority, a scent she mistook for safety. I was commuting to classes then, trying to save money. My world was microeconomics textbooks and lingering grief. Karen was never overtly cruel in public. At the monthly HOA meetings she'd call neighborly chats, she was all practice benevolence. She'd ask about my studies with a distracted air, clap me on the shoulder with a manicured hand, and refer to me as the city girl. She kept the common areas pristine, fixed the community fountain, and always reminded everyone, I'm just doing this for the good of the neighborhood. By all outward appearances, she was a good president providing a good community. My mother was happy, and for a while I tried to be happy for her. But Pineview had two realities. There was the one where my mother's laughter filled the cul-de-sac barbecues, and then there was the one that existed the moment Mom stepped inside for coffee. When the front door clicked shut behind her, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavier, charged with Karen's presence. Her coldness wasn't dramatic. It was a slow, seeping chill that started with the first violation notice taped to my mailbox because my welcome mat was non-compliant beige. It began with control. She'd questioned my coming and goings at the community mailbox with a prosecutor's intensity. Where were you until 8:07 p.m.? Last night, Rachel. The security cameras noted your car. I'd answer the library, and she'd demand, let me see your badge swipe. She'd stand in my driveway, her petite frame somehow blocking the sunlight, and survey my townhouse as if it were a new property she was inspecting for flaws. My window boxes were gaudy. My car was parked at the wrong angle. My choice of remote work was a waste of neighborhood aesthetics. It was never a neighborhood, always hers. The humiliation was a constant low hum. If I received a compliment from a neighbor on my tidy yard, Karen would grunt at the next meeting, should have been perfect. You're not trying hard enough for the rest of us. If I mentioned a male co-worker dropping off files, her eyes narrowed. You need to be careful. A girl like you. Too trusting. We have standards here. The implication was always clear. I was naive, incompetent, and fundamentally flawed. She was the arbiter of reality, and in her reality, I was a perpetual eyesore. The first time she laid a hand on me, it was almost incidental. I was rushing to work, and she was blocking the sidewalk, phone glued to her ear about an urgent mulch delivery. I said, "Excuse me, Karen, I need to get by." She ignored me. I waited, anxiety rising. "Karen, I'm going to be late." She held up a finger, back still turned. Frustrated, I tried to squeeze past. Her hand shot out and grabbed my arm, fingers digging with surprising force. She didn't even look at me, just held me pinned against the community sign while she finished her call. Yes, tomorrow morning is fine. Make it early. She hung up, released my arm, and walked away without a word, leaving 4 distinct red marks. I stood there, heart hammering, realizing the unspoken rule. I moved at her convenience. I existed in her neighborhood. After that, the power plays became another tool. Never a closed fist punch when neighbors could see. It was a hard shove on my shoulder if I questioned a fine at meetings. A finger jabbed into my chest to punctuate her favorite phrase. This is my neighborhood. Every blade of grass, every light you turn on at night, it's because of me. You live here by my goodwill. Don't you ever forget that. I learned not to. I learned to park exactly parallel. I learned to keep my blinds closed and my opinions to myself. The downtown library became my sanctuary, a place where I could breathe air that didn't feel owned by Karen. I studied relentlessly, not just for a degree, but for an exit. Every A I earned was another brick in the wall of my own fortress far from her clipboard. I became an expert at avoidance, blending into the beige walls of Pineview. I made myself small, quiet, invisible. It was survival. My mother, caught in the glow of her new ordered life, saw only a quiet, studious daughter and a strong, providing president. She didn't see the silent war being waged on the sidewalks. She didn't want to see it, and I never gave her a reason to look. The degree was my escape. A bachelor's in finance led to a job, which led to blessed silence in my own townhouse. For the first time, I could close my own front door and know the only person on the other side was me. Freedom is expensive, though. To truly secure my fortress, I needed more. I earned my master's at night. That diploma was a shield. It opened the door to Halberton HOA services. Halberton specialized in acquiring and streamlining small neighborhood HOAs, maximizing value, turning chaotic little fiefdoms into efficient operations. My role was to be the firm's conscience, sifting through financial histories, hunting discrepancies, ensuring every dime was accounted for before we took over. At Halberton, my meticulous nature wasn't anxiety. It was an asset. I was respected. I was good. In Pineview, however, my success was just another weapon for Karen. Sunday neighborly potlucks were mandatory performances. I'd drive the 2 blocks back and sit at the folding table that still felt like her territory. The conversations followed the same soul-crushing script. So, how was the big city this week, Rachel? Karen would ask, carving the community lasagna with unnecessary force. Shuffle enough paper for your bosses? Work was busy. I'd reply neutrally. We're looking at a potential management takeover in the Midwest sector. She'd laugh derisively. Takeover. Fancy word. I laid fresh sod for the community park myself last Friday. That's real work. Something you can see, something you can touch, not just numbers on a screen. She'd point her serving spoon at me. You sit behind a desk in your nice little suit. I manage real neighbors, real mulch. Don't ever forget the difference. I never did. I'd look at my mother across the potato salad, searching for support. I never found it. She'd just offer a tight smile and change the subject. Karen, tell Rachel about the trouble you're having with the new pool inspector. Later, helping with dishes, the real conversation happened over running water. Why do you let her talk to me like that, Mom? She'd stop scrubbing. Rachel, you know how she is. She's just old-fashioned. She's from a different generation. She doesn't understand your world. Don't start trouble. Please. She works so hard for all of us. Just let it go. For me, it was always for her. Her plea for peace was a demand for my silence. So I let it go outwardly. But inwardly, the auditor in me woke up. You don't find fraud by looking for it. You notice the small things that don't add up. It began during spring assessment season, about 3 years after I started at Halberton. Karen, who had always used her own trusted bookkeeper, cornered me after one of the potlucks. Hey, she started, tone feigning casualness. That bookkeeper of mine is trying to rob the neighborhood blind. You're good with this stuff. Right numbers and all that. Give me a hand this year? Just look over the Pineview books. Make sure everything's in order. You be saving your community a couple grand. She called it your community only when she wanted something. My first instinct was to refuse. But then I saw my mother's hopeful expression, and another colder thought surfaced. Access. I'm very busy, Karen. Come on, it'll be easy for you. You're smart, she said, the compliment feeling like a transaction. Family. Neighbors. Help neighbors, right? The following weekend, a cardboard box filled with the financial soul of Pineview Estates landed on my immaculate floor. Chaos. Crumpled receipts, handwritten invoices on napkins, bank statements stuffed randomly. The antithesis of my world at Halberton. She expected me to untangle it for free because my master's degree was just a convenient hobby she could exploit. That first night, sitting on my floor surrounded by her mess, I created a new encrypted folder on my laptop. I named it Project Nightingale. I began to scan every document, every mulch receipt that seemed too high, every invoice from a supplier I'd never heard of. I organized this chaos into pristine spreadsheets. But I also created a second set of files, the ones with notes, a copied email, where she told me to categorize a community appreciation dinner at a casino resort as maintenance expense. A scribbled note, pay cash, no record. She had asked me to look at the books. So I did, closer than she could ever imagine. My mother had asked me not to cause trouble. I wasn't. I was just doing my job. For now. For 2 years, the ritual continued. Every few months, a new box or thick envelope from Karen's approved maintenance company would appear. It became a toxic but predictable chore. I was Karen's unpaid, unofficial HOA auditor. My townhouse would temporarily become an outpost of her chaotic empire. I'd spend weekends turning her mess into immaculate financial statements, logging every anomaly into the encrypted Project Nightingale drive, then returning the originals with a mask of detached professionalism. Karen grew comfortable, complacent. She saw my compliance as natural order. The call came on a Tuesday evening. I was wrapping up a review of a plastics HOA Halberton was eyeing, my mind deep in amortization schedules. Karen's name flashed. Rachel, she grunted, no greeting. I need you to look at something. The new community pool renovation project. The numbers are a mess. I'm sending the files. Clean them up by Friday. It wasn't a request. An hour later, a cloud link appeared. Inside, dozens of subfolders with scanned invoices, payroll logs, supplier contracts. It was bigger than her usual jobs, and for the first time, everything was digitized. A mistake that would cost her everything. Digital trails are clean. I poured wine and opened the first file. Standard Pineview sloppiness at first. Then I found invoices from Midwest Lawn and Frame. Letterhead slightly off. Font default. I ran the address. A UPS store P.O. box in the next state. A coal not formed. Cross-referencing prices. Every invoice inflated at least 30%. Nearly $90,000 laundered through fake sod and fencing. I documented each one, real market price next to Karen's price. Next, payroll logs. Large crew of independent contractors. I ran names through public records. Most legitimate. Then James Bellwether, site consultant, $2,000 wired every Friday for 6 months. Round numbers, red flag. No business registry hit. No social media. Obituary database. James Bellwether died 3 years ago, smiling grandfather with fishing rod. Payments started 2 years after his funeral. A ghost stealing HOA dues. My hand shook, but my mind was clear. I wasn't the scare 19-year-old anymore. I was a 32-year-old auditor who had just uncovered felony fraud. I spent the next hour preserving evidence. Screenshots, downloads, everything uploaded to Nightingale. On Saturday, my mother came over, just for a quick visit. She found me at the dining table, covered in printouts. Working on a weekend? Honey, you work too hard. Just finishing something for Karen, I said neutrally. She peered over my shoulder. Her gaze snagged on the name. James Bellwether, wasn't he an old friend of Karen's from the garden club? The one who passed away. The air grew still. I clicked open the death certificate PDF beside the payroll log. She fell silent. I turned. "Mom," I said softly, "I think Karen is committing federal tax fraud and using a dead man's identity to do it." I watched emotions storm across her face. For a wild second, I thought she'd finally see. She looked at the screen, then at me. Her jaw tightened. Fear replaced by defensive sheen. She stepped back. "Rachel, stay out of her business affairs." She grabbed her purse, walked out, closing the door softly. She had chosen a lie. I was completely on my own. Project Nightingale was now about justice. The week after was silence between us. At work, I threw myself into projects. The clean world of numbers had no hidden loyalties. The feeling of normalcy was fragile. I lived with the low hum of anxiety, the loaded gun on my drive. The explosion came Monday morning in the 40th floor boardroom. "Mr. Davies clicked through the Q4 pipeline. Project Scythe is now active." A slide appeared, primary targets for HOA management takeover. Underneath, 3 bullet points: Oak Ridge, Keystone, and Pineview Estates. The world tilted. My 2 worlds collided. My breath hitched. Across the table, Sarah shot me a concerned look. I shook my head slightly. "Mr. Davies continued. Preliminary financials promising. Due diligence team begins deep dives this week. Mark, you'll lead on Pineview." I knew what Mark's team would find. Midwest Lawn, the P.O. Box, the ghost consultant. Uncovering active fraud during due diligence meant mandatory IRS reporting. Karen wouldn't just lose the takeover. She'd face prison. My career fortress would crumble if I stayed silent. But speaking up meant handing over the evidence that would destroy the neighborhood my mother loved. The meeting ended. I stood on shaky legs and walked straight to Mr. Davies' office. "Sir, I need to recuse myself from any involvement in Project Scythe." He frowned. Personal conflict of interest with one of the targets. His eyes narrowed. "Pineview Estates, that's your neighborhood, isn't it?" I nodded. He studied me, then granted the recusal. "I trust your judgment." My recusal bought professional safety, but solved nothing. I had simply handed the gun to my colleagues. The countdown began. The 2 weeks that followed were agonizing. Project Scythe hummed in the war room. I buried myself in other files, willful ignorance while the tidal wave built. The call from my mother came Thursday. "Rachel, honey, come for the community dinner Saturday. It's important. We're having a special guest, someone important for Karen's future. She wants the family, neighbors, to make a good impression." The irony tasted metallic. She wanted me to perform for the woman about to be devoured by the machine I built. Morbid curiosity won. "I'll be there at 7. When I pulled into the driveway Saturday, a sleek black Lexus sat behind Karen's oversized SUV. Company car. My heart hammered. I walked into the scent of roasted chicken and strained laughter. There, drink in hand, stood Harold Vance, senior partner at Halberton, the firm's most elegant executioner. He turned, eyes meeting mine. Recognition flickered, then smooth smile. We were 2 actors who knew the script. Karen, oblivious, clapped him on the back. "She's the numbers whiz. I manage real neighbors, real mulch. Takes all kinds." He roared with laughter. Harold smiled politely, eyes never leaving my face. Karen had no idea she was standing with 2 people who held her empire in their hands. Dinner was psychological warfare. Harold steered conversation with anecdotes about trust and a president's word. Karen swallowed the bait. She puffed out her chest and launched into grandiose stories. "The key is to stay lean. We just landed a big renovation contract and brought the bid in lower because we know how to be efficient." Harold nodded sagely. "Efficiency. Keeping overhead low." Karen leaned forward, voice conspiratorial. "And you got to know the angles. Some old accounting papers paperwork wasn't perfect. But the guy who did the books retired, moved to Florida, fell off the earth. Those records are ancient history now." She winked, self-satisfied laugh. Silence descended. My mother shifted uncomfortably. Harold's pleasant smile stayed, but his eyes turned to ice. He didn't move. He just let the admission hang. In that moment of pure hubris, I couldn't help it. A small, grim smile touched my lips. Vindication. Karen saw it instantly. Her jovial mask vanished. "What?" she snapped, voice low growl. "What are you smiling at?" My mother shot me a panicked look. Harold waited. I took a slow sip of water and met her glare. For the first time, I didn't look away. "Nothing," I said calmly. "I was just thinking anyone looking to make a serious management takeover would check the books very carefully. That's all." The ripples were invisible but powerful. Harold rose gracefully. "We'll be in touch, Karen." The phrase now loaded. I should have left then. But Karen followed me down the hall to my townhouse steps. She pushed the door open behind me. The latch clicked like a gunshot. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Karen snarled, filling my doorway, chest rising and falling. The affable president mask was gone, revealing raw anger. Looking at me like that in front of him, trying to make me look like a fool in my own neighborhood. I stood my ground, purse clutched like a shield. She stepped closer, wine on her breath. "You think because you went to fancy school and work in a fancy building you're better than me? You live in a world of make-believe numbers. I build community. I'm the one who keeps this place perfect. I pay for every goddamn thing through those dues." And then she swung, an open-handed slap that cracked across my cheek. My head snapped sideways. Blood filled my mouth. In the past, this would have brought helpless tears. But I wasn't 19 anymore. Slowly, I turned back to face her. No hand on my cheek. No tears. The sting was just data. The fear had burned away, leaving cold steel. "I've saved everything, Karen," I said quietly, clinical tone I used at work. "Every fake invoice from Midwest Lawn, every inflated cost, the payroll record for James Bellwether. I have his death certificate. I have the text where you told me how to hide the payments." Her rage flickered with disbelief. She tried to process words that didn't fit her world. I stepped closer. "And you will not hit me again." It wasn't a threat. It was fact. The rules had changed. Frantic banging started on the door, my mother. "Karen, open this right now." Karen roared. "Stay out of this, Carol. This is between me and your daughter." I held her gaze one final moment, letting her see the certainty. The woman who had terrorized the neighborhood with her clipboard was now a cornered animal. "It's too late," I said conversationally. "I've already submitted the evidence." I unlocked the door. My mother stumbled back, face streaked with tears. I walked past her, through the living room that smelled of a life I was leaving forever. I didn't run. My steps were measured. I opened the front door, stepped into cool night air, and closed it softly, leaving my mother's first sob echoing in the ruins of Karen's kingdom. The drive home was a blur. My cheek throbbed. I didn't cry. I felt profound clarity. Back in my townhouse, I sat in the dark, opened my laptop. Project Nightingale was now a weapon. I compiled the most damning files: Midwest invoices with market comparisons, payroll with the ghost highlighted, death certificate, text screenshots. I wrote a short, anonymous cover letter to Halberton's ethics hotline. Attached the folder titled Project Scythe Due Diligence Addendum. Sent it from a new encrypted address. Deleted everything traceable. Then I went to bed and slept dreamlessly for the first time in months. Monday morning, the office hummed with tension. At 9:15, an email from CEO Mr. Harrison. Mandatory boardroom, meeting 9:30, no exceptions. My name was on the list. My recusal no longer mattered. I took my usual seat at the far end. Atmosphere Arctic. Mr. Harrison stood granite-faced. Harold Vance beside him. Mark the lead auditor looked pale. At 5:08 a.m. This morning, our compliance department received an anonymous data package regarding Pineview Estates, HOA. He gestured to the screen. My own cover letter appeared. The package contains irrefutable evidence of systematic multi-year fraud. Click. Side by side, Midwest invoice versus market rate. Click. Payroll ledger with James Bellwether circled in red beside the death certificate. The room was silent except for the AC hum. Mark cleared his throat. The Surface books were too clean. This data is from internal access we wouldn't have reached for another 10 days. Whoever sent this knew exactly where the bodies were buried and performed the autopsy. Harold added quietly, "This was done by a professional auditor." His gaze lingered on me a fraction longer. Mr. Harrison's fury was palpable. We are a 20 billion firm. Our reputation is our asset. We were days away from offering management takeover to an HOA that is a criminal enterprise. The deal is dead. Terminate negotiations immediately. Contact the IRS Criminal Division. We will forward the entire package and cooperate fully. I want our fingerprints nowhere near this mess. The decision was absolute. A multi-million management contract, a decade-old HOA fiefdom, a woman's entire identity, all erased in under 10 minutes. It was just business. The meeting adjourned. I remained seated, strangely detached, watching the machine I had set in motion perform exactly as designed. "Rachel." Harold's voice stopped me in the hallway. He walked closer. "You recused yourself for a personal conflict. Then we had that very interesting dinner where you seemed the only one not surprised by Karen's candor. And now this perfectly packaged takedown arrives in the dead of night." He held my gaze. "You know something about this, don't you?" I look back, unreadable. "I'm just a resident, Harold. And from the looks of it, I don't have an HOA president to worry about anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving him alone. The fallout was not immediate. For 3 days, only heavy silence. I went to work, processed data, lived in the eye of the hurricane I created. I knew the news had reached them. Halberton's lawyers would have sent the termination letter. The dream of a lucrative management deal evaporated. It came on the 4th day. My apartment buzzer rang at 10 p.m. I knew. I buzzed her in. My mother looked broken, blotchy face, messy hair, 10 years older. She stumbled inside, and the first words were a choked accusation. "You're sending her to prison." Tears streamed. "You've ruined us, Rachel." The IRS called today. They're launching a full investigation. They've frozen all the accounts, HOA funds, Karen's personal, everything. We can't even pay the community fees. It's all gone because of you. I looked at the woman who had chosen Karen's order over my safety time and again. Empathy, well, had run dry. I turned, opened my laptop, and spun it toward her. I started with the payroll file, highlighted James Bellwether and the round payments, then the death certificate side by side. She flinched. I didn't stop. Invoice after invoice. The spreadsheet showing $90,000 difference. "This is fraud, Mom. It's a felony." "He was just trying to get by," she stammered. I opened the texts. Karen's own words. Bellwether payment just listed under consulting. "Don't tell anyone." Finally, the screenshot of my mother's reply the day she saw the ledgers. "Don't make a big deal out of it." She watched her own complicity glow on the screen. The tears turned to shame. She finally understood she was the enabler. I turned the laptop back. I didn't ruin anyone. Karen did this. She built this life on lies. And you helped her by looking the other way. My voice quiet, devoid of triumph. "I'm not destroying the neighborhood. I'm just not protecting a crime anymore." She stood there eternity, tears tracing paths. Without another word, she turned and walked out, closing the door softly. The click was final severance. The months between that night and the hearing were slow legal machinery. The IRS, armed with Halberton's package, moved with implacable force. Subpoenas issued. Records seized. Pineview Estates Maintenance LLC, Karen's personal empire disguised as community service, was paralyzed. Assets frozen, projects halted, reputation shredded. The HOA was effectively dead. All that remained was the autopsy. The summons arrived certified mail. My appearance as material witness in the IRS preliminary hearing against Karen Thompson. I spent the week reviewing files like a major audit. Emotion was liability. This was numbers alone. The hearing room was soul-crushing, cheap paneling, flat fluorescent glare, struggling ventilation. I sat at the long table with a government water pitcher and ancient microphone. Across from me sat Karen in an ill-fitting suit, arrogant confidence replaced by sullen resentment. Her face puffy, eyes bloodshot. Beside her, weary lawyer with resignation. In the single row behind, my mother, a specter of grief, hands clenched, never looking at me. IRS agent Albright conducted questioning, sharp and direct. She established my credentials, my role preparing Pineview documents for years. Miss Miller, in your professional review of the community pool renovation expenditures, did you notice irregularities? Yes. Specify. I found numerous invoices from Midwest Lawn and Frame inflated significantly above market rate. The registered address was a P.O. box. I also found consistent payroll disbursements to a consultant, Mr. James Bellwether. And the issue? Mr. Bellwether had been deceased nearly 2 years before the first payment. Low murmur. Karen's lawyer put a hand on her arm. She stared at me with pure hatred. Albright built the case brick by brick. Shell company, flow of money into accounts Karen controlled. Lawyer offered weak objections, clerical errors, disorganized system. Trying to paint sloppy president, not criminal. Then the kill shot. Miss Miller, a competent defense, could argue these were unfortunate bookkeeping errors. The central question is intent. Do you have any evidence pointing to intent? Yes, I do. Technician connected my laptop to the projector. I opened the single file. The email from Karen's official account. Rachel, get Bellwether's name off the active payroll list for the pool project. Bury that whole file deep. I don't want anyone stumbling over it. Absolute silence. Karen's face drained to sickly gray. Jaw slack. She shrank in her chair. She had put her intent in writing. Her lawyer sighed, closed his folder with quiet click, sound of surrender. Halberton's lawyer made a statement withdrawing all interest and announcing civil suit for damages. Agent Albright stood. Based on the evidence, including clear documentation of intent, the IRS will proceed with formal indictment on multiple counts of tax fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. It was over. Pineview Estates Maintenance filed bankruptcy 2 weeks later. Assets sold for pennies. Karen's company, source of her power and pride, dissolved. I walked out of the federal building into bright sunlight. I didn't look for my mother. I knew she was gone. 3 blocks to the train, heels clicking steady rhythm. Back at my desk, the world was exactly as left. New acquisition target in pharmaceutical HOAs. I sat down, sipped cold coffee, went back to work. No celebrations at Halberton. The anonymous tip had saved the firm from catastrophe. My name never officially connected, but in the quiet language of the 40th floor, the truth was understood. Harold Vance would catch my eye and give a slow nod of respect. Mr. Harrison stopped by my office a week later. Your division is getting a new director. I expect a full review of internal audit protocols on my desk by month end. Don't let this happen again. It wasn't reward. It was logical solution. I was the auditor who had audited our own failure. I accepted the promotion and spent the next 6 months rebuilding the department, instilling forensic skepticism, reflecting the lessons from sifting through Karen's fraudulent soul. My mother never called again. The silence absolute. I sent one formal email about liquidating the small trust my father left. Her reply through lawyer, 1-sentence consent. Final ties severed. I felt no anger, no profound sadness. It was like closing a dormant account with 0 balance. Her choice had been made in 100 small moments of averted eyes and whispered, "Don't start trouble." This was the quiet consequence. Karen, through some legal mercy and a deal her lawyer struck, avoided prison. 5 years probation, crippling financial penalties, court-ordered restitution she'd spend the rest of her life paying. She lost everything. The company, the prestige, the black SUV, the respect commanded through fear and fines. She was just a woman in her 60s with a criminal record and no assets. A ghost in the neighborhood she once owned. I never saw her again. Tonight, I am home. My townhouse is quiet. Not the tense, watchful quiet where you measure every footstep to avoid violation notices. It is the deep, peaceful quiet of solitude. The only sound to the hum of the city far below and the soft click of my own keyboard. I sit on my couch, glass of wine on the table, laptop open. I am not analyzing balance sheets or tracing dark money. I am reading a novel just for pleasure. There are no heavy footsteps in the hallway. No door slammed open. No angry voice demanding to know who I think I am. No one will sneer my career, belittling the world of numbers I understand so well. No one will ever again tell me my value is less because I sit behind a desk and not behind a clipboard ruling the grass heights. My victory was not in the courtroom, not in the boardroom, not in the destruction of a woman or her company. My victory is this silence. It is the air in this room which belongs only to me. It is the profound, unshakable knowledge that the fortress I spent my life building was not the one at Halberton. It was the one I built inside myself. And within these walls, I am finally, completely, and quietly free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to see where in the world you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let's connect. Share your thoughts on the story. Subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a like. And if you'd like to give an extra boost, please hit that hype button to help this story reach even more listeners. Your support means the world.